Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today I want to have a little bit of a discussion. We haven't really done one of these in a while, but obviously the Nurgle reveal kinda, well, made the community a little bit on edge about a certain few things. And yeah, you know, it's all about the Nurgle Chaos Warriors, but I believe that this would be a good discussion. So, we finally had the reveal of the Nurgle stuff, you know, with Festus the Leech Lord, and we got our first look at the Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, which to me look freaking cool. Now, keep in mind that yes, I do have a bias towards this because it takes from a lot of the old things that we used to do on the tabletop called kit bashing, where we used to get a kit of minis and then make it our own by using other bits or even making our own bits too. Now, I know a lot of people wanted to see morbidly obese Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, which is expected, that's what a lot of people wanted, but it doesn't really make too much sense. Now, before anything, I'm not saying that your feelings aren't valid. I just want to talk about this and see if we can find reasoning as to why the Chaos Warriors look like this and why you shouldn't really be too worried because we should get the fat boys in the future. So we never really had unique looking kits back in the days of Warhammer Fantasy, and this is the basis of Warhammer Fantasy 8, which we have heard Creative Assembly state in multiple times that this is their main source when it comes to the game series. What we used to do is buy a kit, like you can see here. This is the same kit, just now with circle bases. And then what we do is shave off the shields, green stuff some icons on, even get pieces from other kits. It very much depends on how much and what your ability was to create new units. Because back in the day, and I can say this very freely, Games Workshop were kind of lazy, where they'd give us loads of different art for different things, but they just wouldn't implement it. They still kind of do this sometimes too. It's only pretty recent with the release of Age of Sigmar and the years that have come into that where we've started seeing Chaos Warriors kind of evolve, and even then, none of the factions for the Chaos factions really have their proper Chaos Warriors. I think it's just Sinesh and Khorne right now, and a little bit of Nurgle, but we have to talk about that a little bit later anyway. Now, what the majority wanted is what we see commonly in a lot of fan art and official art, but the official art is taken in a bit of a wrong context. So, what they do want is big boys, you know, like the Putrid Blight Kings. These are a unit that were introduced during the End Times. Or, for example, this Lord Choice, which was introduced in Warhammer Fantasy 7th, I believe. That's when the model first came out. Big, hulking, postulant warriors, and I understand that, but if we go by the lore implications of that, these aren't even Chaos Warriors, these aren't even chosen. In fact, they're just very heavily blessed, and it's something that I do imagine that we will see in the future in the form of its own DLC. A common misconception is that these are Chaos Warriors, but like I said, no, they're just very heavily blessed. These are as close to demonkin as you could pretty much call these mortals, and what a demonkin is a mortal which is very close to ascending to demonhood, to become a plague bearer, to become, well, anything else that the god that is blessing you chooses you to be. It's the complexities when it comes to the Chaos Gods. The more mutations you have, the more blessed you have. There are loads of legions of Chaos Warriors which would not really have any to no mutations at all because they're just Chaos Warriors of Nurgle. They might have some scaly skin, maybe a bit of mucousy skin or pustulant growths, but nothing to the degree of, say, a Blight King. Nothing that massive where their armor is being broken apart and the mutations shine through. It's kind of obvious that we will get stuff like that in the future, even though, say for example, we know that the Chaos Warriors for each of the Monogod factions, we can call that I guess, or Mono Warriors, let's go with Mono Warriors, there's still going to be some missing pieces in the future when we look at the roster for how you upgrade your Nurgle Warriors. And let's be honest, we're expecting characters like, you know, Tamukan, like Gotrot Spume, or any one of the other ones from the other gods. So yeah, if there's space like this, and it's very obvious there's space, there's going to be more DLC, and eventually we're going to expect the Blight Kings, the Skull Reapers, the Wrathmongers, stuff that was introduced during the End Times, which is still usable in Age of Sigmar, but these are still Warhammer Fantasy units. As much as Creative Assembly want to say it's not, it is. I mean, even if we look at the official roster of what's coming with the DLC, it's like, what, 34 units? It's a lot of stuff, but it's mixed around from all the four gods. It doesn't really cover everything. In the Marked Lords and Marked Heroes section, we're very clearly missing stuff. We're missing a Chaos Lord of Nurgle, and we're missing a Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle too, a generic hero version, which is odd because they likely use the same assets. Or in the future, we could get these guys kind of just moved around a little bit. Like the Chaos Lord of Nurgle, I'm expecting to be a fat boy. The Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Nurgle should be a fat boy. However, we're likely to see that change in the future because if people are loud enough, Creative Assembly will listen. And it's very obvious when you look at the other stuff. You know, there's missing stuff for Khorne. Well, not really Khorne, but there's really stuff missing for Tzeentch and Slaanesh. Khorne just doesn't have any spellcasters. They could use a buffer hero and a buffer lord, though. This is honestly why I'm not too worried, because in the future, we're likely to see more. And it just kind of makes a lot more sense. Because, again, they did say more DLC more often, and yeah, I mean, I'm all for it if they are going to fill out the rosters eventually. It's kind of how we've had it for the past, 6 years now? Now, that's not to say that I think that we've had units getting removed from this DLC to be pushed further on into the future. It's just, it doesn't make sense to introduce Blight Kings now, because that would make Nurgle a lot more powerful. The idea is they've probably gone with, they have a certain amount of units that they can introduce for all the four gods, and they've gone for the more friendly way, and I think that's fine. I honestly think that we're in a very good place with this amount of new units. It's a lot to play with at the very least, and we can have themed armies of Undivided, Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and Nurgle, if we so wish, which I think is a good thing. There's also something that we do need to talk about, which I know is a big thing. I've seen a few people mention it when they've gone, oh well, the Chaos Warriors need to be fat, because the Death Guard, the Nurgle-devoted Legion in Warhammer 40,000, are usually quite fat and postulant and so on. The thing is, GW is very inconsistent with their writings. The two systems are also very separate from each other, which is important to note. And if we want to go into a lore thing, I mean, the Death Guard spend a lot of the time in the Eye of Terror, which is very, very chaos-infused. And this is why they're so heavily mutated. Whereas when it comes to Warhammer Fantasy, the most heavy sources of mutations are in the Northern and Southern Chaos Waste. There are no humans in the Southern Waste because it's infested by beastmen, and in the Northern Waste there's a lot of demons too. Yes, humans do live there, but they don't generally survive until they mutate heavily. But the grand majority of any living humans in those areas are in the southern parts, next to the oceans, next to what would be considered habitable areas. The ones in the northern territories, those are the ones like the Wrathmongers, which are heavily mutated, the Putrid Blight Kings, or anything equivalent to those. That's because they've managed to survive, and that's the case. But there's not that many of them. There's not whole legions of it. For example, the Wrathmongers or the Skull Reapers, they're known from the Scaramore tribe. It's just a basic tribe. It's not a massive army of them. And yes, I'm coming here with Lord Trump's gameplay in a very specific sense, but that's why we haven't seen them yet. And we do know that there are hints in-game towards, say, for example, the Magath King, or even Tamukan, which is likely the ones that will see the Nurgle-touched, more specialist type of warriors. I have to repeat this because, yeah, we're likely going to see them, and it's just a big thing. It's just people are mad now about it, and I get it. I honestly do, because I would love to see some fatter Nurgle warriors. If we go back to the whole kit bash aspect, or better yet said, it's called reskins for when it comes to gaming. So, yeah, I know people aren't keen on that, but it is something that we've seen a lot in Total War, especially during the historicals, and it kind of makes sense once again, because, well, you know, it's part of how Games Workshop had their vision for the original Chaos Warriors, and it's likely that we don't have anything too different because of that. Now, yes, we do have confirmation, like, say, for example, the Nurgle Sorcerer, which was on the trailer, does have a different look. He does have proper Nurgle iconography and all that type of stuff. It's just early on, they were using early footage just to, you know, make the promos. But I honestly think that some reskins kind of work because it just brings in an element of fluffing up the rosters a little bit more until eventually we do get some new stuff, some unique units where, you know, that's likely to fall on Games Workshop, because anything that's new, anything that wasn't in the tabletop has to come from Games Workshop. I don't know why I have to keep stressing this out, but a lot of these decisions, like 99.9% of them are GW, because Yeah, it's their IP and they're incredibly anal. Plus, is it not better to get all the, let's say, quote-unquote reskin units, which I am really, really enjoying. I like the look of them. I think they look really nice. And I think it just brings me a lot of tabletop nostalgia, which it should do for other tabletop players. But get them out of the way now so everyone has their theme roster, and then allow for more unique units to come in with their own individual DLCs. Think about it this way. We're getting enough units to more or less, well, more than a race pack, I'd say. And yeah, a lot of work still has to go in for them. We do have some unique stuff, like for example, the Sineshi Hellscourges. It's the case of they had to split up everything, right? So reskins kind of make sense here because everyone can get an equal share. Even the Sineshi Hellscourges are basically likely just taking from the animation and riggings from the Sineshi Marauders. But yeah, okay, that's all done. Everyone's getting equal, and I think that works because when they do dedicated factions, they can go full ham. When we get Tamukan, we can get loads of really cool stuff like Bile Trolls and all that type of stuff. We have a lot of missing units, and I feel like that's always best because we're already seeing, when it comes to, say, for example, normal Lord packs, which is 2 factions, let's be honest, guys. Let's be very, very honest. It's very skewed, isn't it? It's very skewed. One faction always gets a lot better and cooler things than the other, and if it's split in between 4, it's just going to make it much, much worse. Now, I know, you still guys are probably annoyed and all that, but I'm choosing to look at things in a glass half full rather than a glass half empty situation because it's still cool, right? We're getting a lot of stuff. And I still think that we're going to get a lot more stuff in the future. So, yeah, maybe this is a hiccup for some. I know there's a lot of Nurgle fans out there, but there's still a lot more potential. Besides, if we wait for DLC to be dedicated to these factions, and it's closer to Old World, it's likely that Games Workshop already have plans for certain units and new stuff, and, you know, it kind of works for that. I don't know, I just wanted to do a little bit of a discussion video because I know some people were kind of losing a little bit of hope, which is a weird thing. There's no reason to actually think of it that way, so I think this is fine. Obviously, if you think different, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk, let's have a discussion about the matter. If I were you, I wouldn't feel nervous about future content and stuff like that. I don't think they're going to be reskinning often. I think that it makes sense here because of how Warriors of Chaos worked on the tabletop. It's just how it is. But yeah, let me know. Let's talk and see what happens.